Are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I am too.
We're just jumping right in, aren't we?
Yeah.
No small talk.
Yeah. Ready to go. Tell the story.
You have an interesting story.
I do have an interesting story. It's contrasted.
Where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up mostly in a small town northwest of San Antonio in Texas in the hill country. But I also lived in Florida and Arizona and Hawaii when I was a kid. But Texas mostly, and then I moved to LA when I was in my early 20s.
Did you have both your parents growing up?
I did have both of my parents. My mother and father, it's an interesting story. So my mother and father had me very young. They were actually never really together. So my mom was working at this nightclub and my dad was a musician there. And when my mom was about 18, she met this man and she fell like madly in love with him. And he broke her heart. And while she was processing her heartbreak, she kind of leaned on my dad, who was also going through a heartbreak. And they ended up hanging out one night, and that's how I was conceived. And so my dad was in my life, like he was 21, my mom was 19 when I was born. And my dad was in my life, but my mom was primarily a single mom. And the man that had broken her heart came back into her life when I was around 2. He had heard that she had a baby, and he thought that I was his. And I look exactly like my dad, so he knew that I wasn't. And he kind of finagled his way back in. And she ended up having 3 more kids with him. And when he came back into her life and she decided to have a baby with him, it was when she was 3 months pregnant, he hit her for the first time. And I learned that story of why he hit her probably a lot earlier than I should have. It was because I spilled ice cream on his seat truck, and so he punished me. And then she was in the store, and she came back and saw that I was crying and asked what had happened, and he told her the story. And she freaked out on him for hurting me, and he hit her. And she was already pregnant, knowing that she probably should have walked away at that point. She didn't. So from the ages of, really like my memories start to pick up around 3, but super strong like around 4. So from like 4 to 6 until she finally left him. My youngest sister was a little under 2. It was heavily filled with domestic violence. And I had to keep my shoes at the back door of the house so that I could run to my grandmother's house so that she could call the police because he would yank the telephone from the wall. So I remember the police being at our house often, and we lived in a single wide trailer, and I would, see him beating my mom on a regular basis. So those years were really filled with a lot of fear. And
it's horrible for a kid to watch.
Yeah, it was really, really intense. And I'm the oldest of my siblings by like 3.5 years. So I'm the only one I think that really has, I think that they were affected energetically, but I'm the only one that has like very clear picture memory from that time. And when she left him, things were okay for a bit. And then she was kind of dating around. She had different boyfriends. Nothing was ever solid. And when I was around 9, so from like 6 to 9, things were okay. And we lived next door to my grandma. And my grandma was a huge influence in my childhood. I just want to touch on that for a second. Both of my grandmothers were. But my maternal grandmother especially, because she was super spiritual and always talking about metaphysics. I learned to meditate when I was 9 through her and my great aunt, and was in the church and was hearing about like angels and spirits and aliens from a really young age. So like a lot of new age spirituality has been a part of my life for a very long time. And I think that that's important because that is definitely the thread that kept me balanced through a lot of what I went through.
Today's video is sponsored by strawberry.me. Life doesn't come with a roadmap. We all get lost sometimes, and the path forward isn't always clear. For some of the people I interview, that uncertainty is a daily reality. We all face moments like that, where we're starting over, feeling stuck, or searching for something more meaningful. That's why I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Strawberry.me. Strawberry.me offers personal and career coaching that's designed to meet you exactly where you are, without judgment. You take a short quiz, they match you with a certified coach who works with you one-on-one, someone who listens, understands, and helps you build a plan that actually fits your life. This isn't therapy, it's future-focused coaching that helps you take small, consistent steps, whether that means getting a new job, breaking old patterns, or simply learning how to believe in yourself again. Go to strawberry.me/SWU and you'll get $50 off towards your first session. Because no matter where you're coming from, you deserve a path forward, and you don't have to figure it out alone. And now back to the video. Thank you for watching.
So when I was around 9, my mom was a single mom of 4 kids and doing the best that she could, but had my older cousin babysitting us. And the house would be a wreck when she would come home, and she would drive an hour to and from work every day. So she started using a substance to make it easier. And at the beginning, it was a tool. And that transpired. So we started moving around that time as well. We moved to different places in Texas whenever I was growing up, but then we moved to Florida, and then we moved to Hawaii. And when we were living in Florida, my cousin that had been babysitting us was living with us as well, but she didn't go with us to Hawaii. And while we were in Hawaii, my mom's, tool usage became a really heavy addiction. And she started using crystal meth there. And Hawaii was rampant at that time and might still be, but anyway. So that got super heavy and intense, and we went back to Texas. While we were living in Hawaii, my cousin moved in with this boyfriend of hers who was significantly older. She was only 18 and he was 32. And he was dealing drugs and working all night at like a 24-hour pharmacy, so she would be at home alone at night. So we come back from Hawaii, and interestingly, she spent time with my siblings and I all like individually, right as soon as we got back. And as soon as we got back after that weekend, that Monday, my grandmother ran into my room and told me that she was missing. And so for 9 months, we had no idea what happened to her. And at that time, things progressively were getting worse with my mom's addiction. And then her body was discovered. She was only discovered because her perpetrator tried to kidnap another woman, and she got away. Or he did kidnap her, but he tried to murder her, and she got away. And she ended up running through this massive ranch and was running 9 acres naked before she was found. And then he got picked up and arrested, and he came clean about my cousin's murder because he said that she came to him in a jail cell and was dancing around in a white dress and told him that God would forgive him if he confessed so that her family could rest in peace. So after that happened, it's a super small town in Texas. Everybody knew. And I got really, really depressed. I was having a hard time with my peers after living in all these different places and now back in this little tiny town in Texas where everyone there stays there pretty much. And it was a really dark period of time for me for the next few years. And so at the beginning of my 8th grade year, I went to live with my dad for a little while. And I actually had a good experience in school in one semester that I lived with him there, where I was the captain of the cheerleading squad and had started acting at that point as well. And I fell in love with the stage. And then I moved back to Texas because my mom had kind of convinced me that she was doing better, and she wasn't. But it was in theater class, again, that I started writing notes back and forth with this girl that I had known since elementary, but we had never really connected. And then we realized that we had all of these things in common, and we became inseparable. She was a cheerleader, and her friends actually made her choose. They were like, it's either us or Brielle. And she was like, screw you guys, I'm hanging out with Brielle. So we did everything together, like absolutely inseparable, two peas in a pod. And we started to get into a lot of trouble. You know, we got into high school, and neither one of us had like a lot of grounding in our family lives. And then she decided to move to Kansas, and I decided to get my GED at the end of my sophomore year and move to Austin because I was planning on pursuing acting, and I wanted to get a demo reel put together before coming out to LA. So while I'm living in Austin, things are like progressively getting worse with my family, with my mom and my siblings. And so I actually take my siblings away from my mom behind her back and put them on a plane to live in Arizona with their aunt and uncle. And my mom lost her mind and was threatening me, and I was really scared. And so I called my friend Emily in Kansas and was like in a panic, and she was like, just come to Kansas. And so I drove to Kansas in my like 1993 Altima that had over 300,000 miles on it probably, all the way to Kansas, like just to go see her, to just like reset. And I spent a week with her, and it was fall, and I just remember like the big maple trees, and she lived next to a creek, and I was like walking next to this creek every day, praying, trying to like find out what the next step in my life was. So when I got back, it was exactly a month later that I was shopping with a friend. After Thanksgiving, it was a Black Friday, and I got a call from her mom saying that there was a hotel room with blood everywhere, and the police had like busted down the door. And I just fell to the ground because I already knew. And I ran out of the store, and my friend was like, what happened? And I told her, and she was like, how do you know? Like, why are you being such a pessimist? And I was like, no, you don't know. I've already been through this. Both Emily and my cousin Bridget were 18. They both had like the same textured hair. They both had blue eyes. Both of their murderers were 24. They were both in rural places in Texas. It was a really like hard hit for me to grasp that the two closest girls to me were taken in such a violent way. And I became very reserved. I just want to back up a little bit. Like during my childhood, you know, my mom was mainly in sales, but she would also like work in strip clubs. And so I knew like about, you know, different types of sex work at a very young age. When I was 11, she told me about a friend of mine's mom who was a prostitute. And so I was aware of that kind of work. And when I was 16, like being like a wild teenager, I met this guy that was 32. And it wasn't until I started thinking like back onto the story that I realized that, you know, he had groomed me. But, you know, I was with him intimately, and then he would like shower me with all these gifts and take me to do all these cool things and like drive to pick me up in his Corvette. And so when I was 18 and living in Austin, right around the time that Emily was killed, I had been working at this kind of Hooters type of place in Austin, and it was very encouraged that girls sat with the customers and like, you know, were just friendly and worked for their tips or whatever. And so there was one like regular group of guys that would come in often, and there were always a lot of girls that were hanging out at their tables. And then they like invited us to go out, and I was like 17, 18 whenever I started going out with them. And then that was like the first time that I started getting like paid for hanging out and yeah, the things. And, you know, coming from poverty, like it was really hard most of my childhood to then all of a sudden like see this money and feel like it was a very conflicting emotion initially. And I had struggled in my adolescence with a little bit of bulimia, but some cutting and some, like self-harm, and when I was younger while my mom was addicted. But then it kind of picked up again whenever that first started happening. So I was really grappling with it. But like the girls that I was working with were all doing it. It was like kind of okay. I was assaulted by my manager at that place at one point as well, like pushed me into a closet and started making out with me. So I think that I just started to realize at a young age that I had this kind of, commodity through my beauty and through sex, that I could leverage it for my benefit. So after Emily was killed, I decided to move to Costa Rica. And I lived there when I was 18 for a few months. And I moved there to find myself, to do some soul searching, to just like quiet all of the chaos that was in my life at that time. And I did. I started practicing yoga. I thought maybe I would not act for the first time in my life, and was like, maybe I'll just teach yoga and practice massage and travel around the world. But in the back of my mind, I was constantly worried about my siblings. And I would call home to check on them. And the closest in age to me, my sister closest in age to me, she would cry and tell me like all the things that were happening and beg me to come back. And so I left after 3 months, and I went back, and my mom and I ended up getting into a huge argument, like right as I got back. It was like right before my 19th birthday. And I ended up breaking her nose. And it's so sad when I say that, like it breaks my heart. I've never gotten into like physical altercation with anyone, but I was so frustrated with her and her choices. And, so she ended up leaving for like 2 months. She just like, maybe a month. She just like disappeared. And so I got like the house that she had bought that was just like a wreck. I got it like into somewhat, clean, stable environment for my siblings. And one of my friends was like helping me out and letting me use his car. So I was like, single mom to my siblings for a while. And then my mom wanted to come back in. And when she came back in, I was like, no. And so I moved my siblings over to my grandmother's house, which was just next door, but still, at least there was some separation. And I'm so glad that I did that, because on my mom's property was also my aunt's trailer, who was also using meth, and she went to prison. She like got busted and went to prison. And I feel like if I had not moved them to my grandmother's house, then they could have gone to the state. And so throughout my life, I'm constantly reflecting on all of these like perfect synchronistic moments where we were protected and things like worked out for the better. And so, yeah, my siblings went to my grandma's. I went back to Austin, and I started going to massage therapy school. And while I was in massage therapy school, my car broke down, so I couldn't go and check on my siblings. And so I didn't see them for a while. And then one of my mutual friends from high school was like, I'm going to go and like see my family. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, absolutely. And I went, and I was just in shock with the way that they were living. My sister, and closest in age to me, was 16. My brother was 15, and then my youngest sister was like 12 and a half or something. And they were just like smoking pot and like being wild. My youngest sister, like not even 13 years old, walking around in her bikini in front of my brother's friends and like smoking weed. And I was just like, no, this is not okay. So I went back to Austin, and I lived in this little studio apartment that had this huge window, and the moon would like cross the window. And I sat under that window staring at the moon for like 4 days straight, crying and like praying for guidance on what to do. And I decided to write my mom a letter, a 4-page letter that I actually still have a copy of. And I sent it to her in the mail, asking for a chance with my siblings. So after like several days of her fighting with me over it, and she agreed. And the day that school got out, I went to pick them up. I got a loan from some guy that I knew, like a 10 grand loan, and got a place in Austin that was big enough for us. And I rented a U-Haul and went and picked them up and brought them to Austin to live with me. And my brother only lived with me through the summer and like a month into high school. And my oldest sibling, the oldest sister of the two, she stayed about 7 months or something. It was maybe less. It was after she turned 17 that she decided to move in with her boyfriend. And so my youngest sister, I basically put through high school. So when she was living with me initially, I was working like 3 different jobs. I was working as a bev cart girl and a cocktail waitress and also doing some assistant work on the side. And I was never really home, and I was like drowning and trying to keep everything afloat. And so I got online and I found this ad that was looking for models. And I answered the ad and met this guy out, and he was basically like, you know, this is kind of what it is. And I was like, okay. And so that was my entry into escorting. And for the first few months, I don't remember exactly how long I was working with him, but it wasn't a very, very long time, but it was pretty intense. And that was definitely like the brunt of it. And then I met—
in what city?
This was in Austin.
In Austin.
Yeah. And I was like working out of an in-call and would go to out-calls as well. But yeah, it was hard, and I was hiding it from everyone. And then my family ended up finding out. I had like a little bag of supplies that I kept in my car, and my sister found it, and so I just came clean about it. And that was hard on them, you know? And it stayed that way. I met a client that was like, you don't need to be working with this guy. Let me help you get out on your own, and help me set up a website. And so then I was doing all the vetting for my clients from then forward. I was charging a much higher rate, et cetera, et cetera. That's whenever it started to cross into the high-end space. And my sister, the youngest sister who was still living with me, she had to carry that. She knew that was happening. And of course, her friends are like, you live with your sister. And then I ended up getting this really nice house that was in a beautiful area of the school district that she was living in, one of the nicer areas in Austin. And, you know, so people are like, how is your 21-year-old sister affording this? And so that was going on for a few years. And then it was always my plan, once my sister graduated, to move to LA. I still then wanted to act again. I had started taking acting classes again in Austin, and it's always been an undercurrent passion. And so I went to LA the summer of her 11th grade year and was like, I'm so ready to move here. Like, you know, we need to downsize so that I can prepare to move. And she was like, why don't we just go now? And I was like, what? It's your senior year. And she was like, I don't really care. Like, you've done all these things for me, made all these, you know, sacrifices. Like, if you want to go, let's just go. So that's what we did. And we came here, and I had an agreement with her that we needed to be on the same page. We needed to be able to communicate clearly. She couldn't just run off with her friends like she did in Austin. You know, LA is a much bigger city, and I was worried about her getting into trouble. And she couldn't really hold on to that. Like, she couldn't do that. She got into, like, not trouble, but she just started hanging out with friends without telling me, and like running around without letting me know. And I was really uncomfortable with it. She hadn't even started school yet. And so I had a strong conversation with her, and she didn't respond well to that. And I was like, no, we can't do this. Like, you need to go back to Austin. So she went back to Austin on her own, and she stayed in Texas and finished school on her own. And I stayed in LA. So the next, 10 years. When I first got to LA, I was like, you know, all of that, like the escorting is staying in Austin. I'm not bringing that to LA. I want to be an actress. I want to be taken seriously. I want to focus on it. But I got introduced like right away. I don't know how I attracted it, but I just ended up meeting girls that were like, let me introduce you to these guys. And then these guys are like, and then I ended up going to, the really high spectrum with it and being around copious amounts of drugs and money and glitz and glam and being gifted a Chanel bag like every time I hung out, or like just a bunch of different experiences that I had never experienced, taking private jets to different places around the world, hanging out with, people. And it was the glitz. It was like the shiny aspect, and I was definitely caught up in it for a while. But saw it as having fun. However, I knew it was pretty empty for me. And then one of my friends died of an overdose, and then it kind of like took me back a little bit, and I started questioning the choices that I was making and the people that I was hanging around with. And I started on my healing journey, and I took ayahuasca for the first time when I was 25. And it literally shifted so much of my perception and healed so much of the trauma that I had been carrying. Like, it literally felt like a physical release. Reliving some of the trauma that I went through as a little girl and being able to hold her and like process that. And
where did you do your ayahuasca?
I did it with a Peruvian shaman from the Shipibo tribe in Topanga. That was the first time that I did it. I've done
here
it
in LA.
Here in LA, yeah. I've done it 8 times. Never in South America. I haven't been to South America yet, but in Central America, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Los Angeles, or Joshua Tree, a couple times in Joshua Tree. But it realigned everything. Like, it shifted my whole trajectory on my own internal like worth and grounding. And after that ceremony, I started attracting like my LA tribe and all of these beautiful people that I was really connecting with and that I felt safe with. And I write poetry, and I started performing in this really beautiful show that is in West Hollywood at this little boutique hotel. It's called the Rooftop of Paradise, or Paradise. I forgot. Actually, it's been a long time. I haven't thought about the name in a while. But yeah, I started performing in that show, and I've always consistently like acted, but I was mainly in classes. I wasn't pushing enough in auditions. I had gotten signed a couple times, but I didn't have enough of a work ethic with it. And so then around 2018, I end up meeting this guy, this young guy, was like 9.5 years younger than me. I was 29. And he was just telling me all the things that I needed to hear at that time. I think I had just been so jaded by dating in LA and like the scene and of course the work that I was doing that, I jumped in and I ended up marrying him. He decided to join the Army, and I was like, oh, I don't want that life. I met him when he was 19 and then he turned 20, but he joined the Army and I just couldn't let it go. So I left LA and I sold everything, and even my car, and like got a little beater car and went to Georgia and lived in this little tiny, not even apartment. It was like a room in the back of like a storage unit of an undone duplex that just had a bunch of machinery in it, and worked at a daycare. I've worked at daycares in and out of my life like frequently for like $7 an hour, and was just like, I'm doing it for love. And then moved into his barracks and like secretly lived in his barracks with him for a month until we got a house, like with my Pomeranian. I don't know how that happened, but it did. And that was like only like 6 months worth of time because it was hard with him. There was a lot of toxicity. He was so young and was very jealous and constantly suspicious because he knew about my life. So even working at a daycare, he was like, oh, are you with the dads? Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, here for you. But I went back to LA And that's whenever I moved on the west side of LA. And then 2020 hit. And so I had always, like, in my experience, I mean, it started really in adolescence, but, like, I had always kind of, like, used drugs recreationally and, like, yeah, sure, why not? It was never a problem. But then 2020 hit, and ketamine became a big thing for me. I was just like, oh, well, the world shut down, like, might as well just go on a journey. And it was fun for a second, and then it became like a really heavy crutch. And I was still escorting with these high-end clients, and a lot of them were, like, really dark. You know, there are a lot of them that are also amazing and have been incredible influences in my life that are still dear friends to this day. I'm very grateful for some of the people that I've come across and just the friendships that have been built from it. It's a very colorful space, right? Like, there's, like, the darkest dark in it, but then there's also, like, this need of connection and exchange that can kind of only happen in this, like, boundary given space where people feel safe, you know? So it's interesting in that way. But I didn't want to be doing it anymore. I was getting burnt out on it. And so using was my way to check out, obviously. And at the beginning of 2022, I told myself that I could not keep living that way and something had to change. And I said, one more year in LA. And I either need to meet someone or book another role in a movie. I had just booked a lead role in a movie. And so I was like, okay, like, I need to book another role that makes me feel like I should continue acting, or I need to meet someone, or I need to leave LA because I'm slowly dying. Like, this is not going well. And so at exactly the halfway point, like, nothing had really changed. And I ended up meeting this man after LIB Festival. I was super depressed. Let me pause for a second. Before the beginning of 2022 in November, a girlfriend of mine who was not a close girlfriend, more of an acquaintance, but a close friend to many people, like, in my circle, she was drugged and murdered in LA. It was a huge thing. Model, like, a lot of people knew her, and it really took me, not only because of the trauma that I had experienced in regards to violence against women, but also because of my lifestyle choices. And I was just like, I could have been her at any point in this time. Like, many times did I wake up in places that, like, I didn't know whose house I was at or what had happened. So that's whenever I was at the beginning of 2022. It was like, something has to change. Like, I'm going to die if I don't shift my life. So I was dealing with depression. And at the halfway point of the year, like, before LIB, like, I was still depressed. Like, things were just, like, going. I was just numbing, and I just, like, nothing was changing. And I leave LIB, and I go to this gas station to fill up for gas, and I meet this man. This beautiful man is on the other side of the pump. And we end up talking, and I hang out with him. We, like, go on a first date. Like, we go back to LA. We jump in the ocean and then have dinner together. I end up spending the night with him, and it was just like stars were aligned. And I literally called my mom the next day and told her I was moving in with him because I told him about my lifestyle. And he was like, I don't want you doing that. Like, why don't you just follow me around, attached to my hip? And I was like, okay. Like, the most beautiful man I had ever met. And I was just convinced that he was my person. So, and that, you know, the universe had brought him to me and everything was meant to be in that way. And after I moved in with him, like, probably a month after I was living with him, I discovered that he was using meth as well. And that was really hard for me because it destroyed my childhood, obviously. And now I'm choosing the person that I'm, like, with. And I was very much like, we're going to get through this together. Like, I'll face it with you. And it was really hard and really messy. And he eventually did get clean after I left and moved. Well, I didn't move. I was just like, I'm making a point. I'm going to Texas. I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going to be an accomplice to this. He had 2 kids already. And then he gets clean and I go back to LA and then like a few weeks later, I find out that I'm pregnant. And we went opposite directions on that pregnancy. So I wanted something to change the beginning of 2022. And then like towards the end of 2022, I found out I was pregnant November 15th. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with LA. I'm done with all of this. And I'm going to raise this baby on my own in Costa Rica. And so that's what I did. I moved back to Texas for like 6 months and was staying with my mom. And crazily enough, like my grandfather passed away right at that time. And my dad came into some inheritance from him and gave me a chunk of it. And I was able to move to Costa Rica and start my new life there. And so I've been there for 2 years.
And that's where you are now.
And that's where I am now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting little story you've got of your life.
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. I feel so lucky to have had all of these different pieces and different experiences from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, because I feel like I have this capacity to hold space for others, a heart that, you know, I have a lot of compassion and empathy. And strength. Like I'm so grateful for my connection to divine source. I'm so grateful that like even in my darkest points, like I knew that something had to change. Like I knew that I was meant for more. And even as a child, when things were really rough, like I knew that that wasn't my life. Like I knew that I could do something different. And even though like my life isn't traditional, it's very taboo, it still awarded me with a lot of freedom, obviously, time, and ability to connect with people. Like I love finding beauty in everyone that I come across, and I feel like every single person that I've ever come in contact with has taught me something, like whether that be like a challenging lesson or like a beautiful one. I feel like I made the best of it, the best that I could, all of it. And now, you know, the last almost 2 years that I've been a mom, like it's been the most beautiful gift that I could have ever dreamed of. And I've always wanted to be a mom ever since I was 15. I knew that I wanted kids. I really wanted to be specific about breaking generational cycles and like having a healthy home and being in a beautiful marriage. And I still want those things. But I do feel that by removing myself from toxic environments and starting this journey of motherhood alone with him in Costa Rica is that, you know, that I...
Is the father part of...
He's not.
Your son's life?
He was in the beginning. He went down there to meet him. He's not right now. He has a lot of his own pain around the situation. He has a lot of resentment towards me in the way that I handled things and choices that I made. You know, like I told him what I was doing. He could have interjected and said, you know, like, I don't want you to do that. Like, I want to be involved. I want to be there. Like, you know, but he didn't. And so I was very clear about my plan. And so in the beginning, he was around a little bit and we were talking here and there. And then when my son was 5.5 months old, I brought him back to LA and we spent Thanksgiving together with the other 2 moms who, by the way, I'm very close with. One of the moms has my son right now. It's such a beautiful gift. Like I gained more family because of him, even if he's not in the picture. Like the moms and I are very close and our kids are going to know each other and love each other.
The moms of
the moms of his other kids.
Of his other kids.
Yeah, the other baby,
So
my
you have
my modern sister wives.
Your
Like I
sister
don't,
wives,
yeah,
yeah.
my sister wives. Like I don't really know what else to call it, but aside from the misogynistic, like controlling husband, we don't have that. We just have each other.
What are your biggest regrets of your
I don't really have any regrets. I think that, we take what is handed to us and deal with it the best that we can and how we understand and know how to the best of our abilities and our own healing. I think that I have healed a lot since becoming a mom, but I'm still working on things. I'm not a perfect person. And I think that all of those choices that I made that, maybe I could have chosen differently have made me who I am. And I'm so grateful to be in this position and like this place that I'm at in my life right now.
Are there any things you would have done differently in your life?
I don't think so. I don't have any, I've made peace with all of it. I feel like everything that was dealt, I responded in a way that I felt was right for me. And I did the best that I could. So.
Are you still living off the money that your dad gave you?
No, I'm not.
Are you working?
I have a beach picnic business, and it's not sustaining me. It's very tropical where I live, so I can't really depend on it. And also where I live, it is pretty underdeveloped, so the price point isn't, and then it doesn't really make sense for me to do it.
Is the father of your son helping?
He doesn't help at all. Yeah, he's not involved since I brought my son to LA because we had a big thing, and he hasn't talked to me since. So my son's almost 2, and I reached out to him a lot since I've been here, trying to just give him the opportunity to see him. But like I said, he's got his own pain and wounds around it all. So I pray for that. I pray for his healing. I pray that he and my son have like a good relationship. But I made it very clear that he wouldn't be a negative impact on him. So I don't know about that. But no, he doesn't do anything financially. He's not really in a place to do anything financially. But I also made it very clear that I wouldn't ask for anything, which is, like one of the reasons why I'm the only parent on the birth certificate. Like I wanted full autonomy to raise my child however I choose, to live wherever I choose. It's my dream to raise my son around the world.
And raising your son in Costa Rica works for you?
It does for now, but I really want to raise him around the world. Like it's my dream to have him be influenced by cultures and people.
You could raise them in European countries or
all over. Like I would really
over.
love to just like base in different spots. There's like this school called Boundless that does like 2 or 3 month stints, but it's the same curriculum and like style, and they have campuses all over the world. Something like that would be cool. I even am like interested in just like unschooling until he's old enough to really make his own decisions and letting him be self-led.
The world is changing.
The world is changing, and I think that teaching emotion, like EI and self-awareness and compassion for people is like the most important thing today, especially with technology and people being so disconnected from each other, and like the younger generation being so inundated with technology, that for him to be raised with experiences and people and different environments and cultures, that's really helpful for being a good person. That's really all that I want, is to raise a good human and a loving person. But yeah, I still have someone that helps me, like a sponsor that's still supporting me while I'm pursuing a YouTube channel. So I started diving into creating my own content, which has been a really beautiful process of creativity while I'm down there. It's very like displaced from everything. So like I feel that acting hunger is being fed by shooting B-roll and editing and putting music to these videos.
What kind of content?
So right now it's a mixture. It's really, a lot of my story. I am at a point in my life where I just want to be fully authentic and open and share all that I am with the world and all that I feel, I think that integrating the light and the dark is a really powerful way to live. I don't have shame around my dark. I don't put it on a pedestal either. I'm not super proud of it, but I'm also I've made peace with it. And I love the light side of myself. I love the way that I can see art and beauty in the world and writing poetry and expressing in an artistic way. So it's my poetry, it's my life story, it's processes with being a mom, it's the taboo side of me. So we'll see how that goes because, it's a big melting pot of who I am. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that is, if I'm going to be authentic, then that's what it should be.
It sounds like a very interesting life.
Yeah. It is really interesting. I'm just ready for things to not be chaotic, which has happened since I moved to Costa Rica, where there's so much more peace and balance and grounding in my life. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. I'm the cleanest. I'm the clearest. I'm the most calm. And obviously becoming a mom has had a huge influence on that, but just the environment of being in Costa Rica and being so immersed in nature. It's hard living there too. You've been.
What are the downsides for you?
The downsides,
living there.
I mean, I think for someone who's a Westerner, the conveniences, it's hard to not, it's raining a lot, so I can't take my child to a museum. I can't take him to a playground. We don't even have good playgrounds in our town. So if the beach is not accessible, it's you can't really do much. I put a playground at our house because I'm he needs something to be able to do. So that's one of the hard things is there's just not a lot of things to do besides go to the beach. And the mold, being so ingrained with nature. Everything is pretty much open air. Our house is beautiful. It's really well made. It's very quaint and cute and humble, but it is a nicer place in the area. And they call it jungle dust. I mean, I have to clean. I'm a Montessori mom. All the toys are natural. I use cloth diapers. I'm very eco-friendly. We have a completely non-toxic home. So mold really loves all of the wooden toys. Mold loves everything. So that's challenging. Our house gets sprayed every 2 weeks, but bugs still make it in. One night I was laying in bed and a huge centipede was on my foot. But I've gotten really comfortable with bugs. My friend was driving me home last night and she was like, oh my God, there's a moth in the car. And I was like, I got it. And then just threw it out. I feel it's slow too, which after a couple of months, which is why I like traveling, because I get a little itchy. I'm like, okay, I need to change the frequency. And some people that I know there that have been there for several years, I mean, the drama, the gossip, it's a small place. It just happens naturally. I just think that's a human trait where people just kind of they start spinning a little bit. But most people that I know do leave and travel a lot during the year. I would love for that to be our home base and to buy property there. That would be the dream. And then we travel and go back there to recharge. But who knows what will happen. I mean, I'm putting a solid year into my YouTube channel and we'll see if it goes anywhere. And I'll just go from there, taking it one day at a time. I feel lucky that I have the sponsor that I have right now, even though when I'm in Costa Rica, it's I'm so separate from that world. And my son is still so little that I feel I'm right on the precipice of that not being in my field anymore, in my world. It's going to be in the past. And I feel that in my heart and soul. So there's not a battle with it where I'm just oh my God, I can't do this anymore. It's soul crushing it was when I was in LA. Because then I was just I don't want this anymore.
Is the sponsor
He's
a remnant from that?
Is he what?
A remnant from that lifestyle?
Yes and no. I met him in Texas and I visit him once or twice when I come to the States. And that's about it. And he helps me monthly. And I don't know how long that will last. But I feel like it's a beautiful gift right now while I'm focusing on my creative pursuits with my YouTube channel. And even if it doesn't take off, like, I trust that we'll be taken care of. I think that anything that I've learned in my life is that if you trust in your internal, like, guidance, if yourself, your connection to divine, that inner voice, that there's something that will tell you where to put your energy, where to focus. And if you just believe in what you really want, and it's coming from a place of, like, a beautiful part of your soul, not ego, that the universe transpires to support that. I've seen it in my life, and maybe it's, naive of me to just be like, oh, trust the universe. I also have a strong work ethic. When I'm passionate about something, I know how to work really hard. And it's been interesting. Like, I haven't been given a lot of, like, work opportunities. Other people in my life, like my sisters, for example, they just, like, get given these opportunities to, like, work for these people. And I'm like, wow, like, that's never really happened to me. And all the people that I know, nobody's like, you should just work for me, I mean, I would love that. Like, I would love an opportunity to do something that I feel passionate about. But I also don't want to be soul crushing to a job that is taking a lot of my time and is not something that lights me up, I feel so grateful that I've been able to be super present with my son in these first, like, most important years of his life, the first
important decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
The job versus the time you're with your son.
Well, I think that the time with the son is the most important. Mm-hmm. Like, it's the most important job that we will ever do as humans, is, like, how we raise our kids. And those first 3 years, the foundational years of their life, are the most important. That's when, like, all the pathways in the brain are set. And when they are a secure human, it's usually because they had the love, the attention, the presence of a primary caregiver in those early years. And it typically needs to be the mother. It could be the father as well, but the father then has to be, like, more in his feminine and really maternal. Fathers have different roles for their kids, which are equally important. But at this particular stage, I mean, really all they need is one. But, like, at this particular stage, it's really, like, about the mom. So I'm so thankful that I've been able to be present and to also have the help that I have in Costa Rica, to have a nanny and a housekeeper that are just customary there, that are so affordable. And I'm so privileged, and, like, that makes me so emotional thinking about, like, how privileged I am.
Makes your life much easier.
It makes my life much easier, and there's so many people in the world that will never have that opportunity. And so, like, I say that with, like, a humble heart. Like, I know that I'm privileged, and just because of where I was born or how I look, and I wish that it weren't like that. I wish that things were more balanced and everybody had opportunities to raise their kids wherever they want, however they want, and to be with them if they choose in the beginning, But I don't know. We'll see how it continues to unfold.
You're living a very interesting life, Brielle.
Yeah, I am.
Thank you for sharing the story with us.
Thank you so much for listening.
I wish you lots of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.